So, salam everyone, good to see everybody. And yes, I think it would be good just to have a quick recap what we've covered so far, where we have reached. Today's session is almost, you can say, the climax of the whole course, and the next session is the last one. We will finish next time. So we're almost near the end of this journey. And the journey, if you recall, was that we start from a position of separation and suffering, a painful feeling of incompleteness, and moving on a journey towards the source of all perfection, all peace, all fullness, all joy. And that's what this journey is all about, the journey of Salah. And we are moving from the world of seeing objects, even seeing ourselves as an object, to seeing a world which is all a reflection of one and a manifestation of that one, and feeling a connectedness to that one, which eliminates all of our suffering, all of our needs, all of our pain. And we did that by first going through some preparation to purify ourselves and prepare ourselves to enter his presence. And today we will cover a new technique, but the two main techniques that we discussed at the beginning, very early on, were to develop concentration and this bodily attention, to shift our attention away from the mind and into the body as a way to quiet the mind and stop us from becoming distracted and lost in thoughts and objects and perceptions. And so we learned two techniques of how to do that. There was the breath meditation that we use to concentrate the mind, and then the body scan, which shifts our attention to the body, which helps us to become present, feeling our own presence and stabilizing that presence. Then as we progressed, we were learning, and I'm going to cover this, that's why I'm repeating part of it, is that we spoke about once we are established in our own presence, we then learn to, in a way, open up into this infinite presence which we are within. So our presence within his presence, and opening up to that was something we talked about, these two levels of presence. First, presence of yourself, then shifting to an awareness that your presence is in his presence. And then we began the actual Salah itself. We spoke about this process of moving towards him and moving through his actions to his qualities and attributes, and then towards his essence, the af'al, then the sifat, and then the dhat. And as we do that, we are eliminating our false self, and that reaches its peak in the state of fana, total annihilation of our false self in fana. Out of fana, then we come into a state of baqa, where we now have been transformed so that we can see him in everything that we see and not get lost again and feel separate. So that's part of what we discussed. And then we started with the Salah itself in the qiyam position, standing, the mukhataba huduriyya that we discussed, of the Fatiha. And that's where the dialogue begins. And each step of the process, we are getting closer to him. Okay, so in the standing position, we will focus on his actions, this qayyumiyya, al-qayyum. And then we progressed closer to him, looking beyond the actions to his attributes, those sifat wa asma, the world of al-wahidiyya. And that's getting closer to him because the essence is the closest you can be to him, followed by the attributes, the sifat, and on the outer level is the af'al, the actions. So we moved to ruku', which was the intermediate step between qiyam and sujood. So the ruku' was a preparation. That's what we call that, right? It's a preparation to enter that nearness that comes in the sujood, which is the highest level you can reach. The closest that you can be to him is in the sajda itself. And that's where we reached. We were at the ruku' stage. And so today the focus will be on the sajda. Okay. And the symbolism there and the practice there that we will discuss. And I'll start by talking about the understanding of the sajda, okay, and the symbolism there and what is meant to happen. And then I will go to the actual inner practice, the actual techniques that we will use in the sajda itself. Okay, and there we will learn a new technique which will raise the level of our presence, and that's something we will do outside of salah. Actually, that's part of the training that we will do, and then we will see how it is applied in the salah, in the sajda itself. Okay, so that's what we will cover in today's session. So let me share some slides and start to go through, beginning with some of the understanding of the ideas and the concepts and the symbolism within the sajda itself. Okay, so as I said, in the qiyam, we said it was a tajalli, a manifestation of Allah in the form of tajalli al-fi'li, okay, al-af'al. That's what the qiyam was. The ruku' was the tajalli al-sifati, okay, tajalli al-sifati. That's what we covered in the ruku'. The sujood is associated with tajalli al-dhati. Now the essence. This is the closest that we can become. And his essence is infinite and unknowable. And in that infiniteness, nothing else can survive. Nothing else can stand when that essence reveals itself. And so that's why the sajda is the stage where we reach fana. This false I that you have cannot sustain itself in that level of intensity of nearness to him. Okay, so it's the stage of fana fillah, and all the way through, remember the niyyah itself was for qurba. And so here we are when the ayah says fasjud waqtarib. This is where the qurba becomes. This is the closest time that you are to him, is in the sajda. And so if we think about it almost physically, you can say that there is an intensity of nearness to the point that you become unaware of anything other than him. Okay, it's like holding something really close to you. You cannot see anything else. Okay, you cannot see anything else. So it's that closeness that overcomes your ability to even see anything else. Okay. Now, physically, that's what we do, right? Physically, we put our head down to the ground, facing the ground. Physically, that's representing that nearness. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing internally, spiritually. We are going to focus our attention only towards Him, and therefore become unaware of anything else. But you can also see that physically, that's what we're doing. You can no longer see anything else because of the position you are in physically. Okay, so that's part of what the symbolism of this actual physical posture is, what it's meant to represent. Okay, so in this first sajda, it is the process of eliminating all others so that you experience only your essence and His essence. Okay, that's the first sajda. Nothing else is there, only you and Him. If you remember when we were talking about tawajjuh ila al-qibla, okay, focusing on qibla, I described the technique which I called making the world disappear, right? Making the world disappear as though nothing else exists. Well, now we're doing the same thing at a more intense level. Nothing else exists, only you and Him. And this box here, you see, I've put, again, a continuation of this beautiful hadith, which explains how Rasulullah experienced Salah in the Mi'raj. And we continue with this. Where he says, فاستقبلت الأرض بوجهي ويدي فألهمت أن قلت سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده لعلو ما رأيت فرجعت إلى نفسي وتجلى عني الغش فقعدت فصار السجود فيه سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده وصارت القعدة بين السجدتين استراحة من الغش وعلو ما رأيت. How beautiful. And if you remember, if I go back actually, that leading into this, I should have probably started here, but remember he said, فقال ارفع رأسك فرفعت رأسي فنظرت إلى شيء ذهب منه عقلي فاستقبلت الأرض بوجهي ويدي. So that's what happened when he finished the ruku' and he stood up from ruku'. So that led him to fall towards the earth, and then this continuation, فاستقبلت الأرض. Okay, so this is the footsteps. These are the footsteps that we are walking behind. And that's the level of the first sajda. And then the sitting between the sajdatain. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Okay. Now, after that, we go for a second sajda. Okay, sajda thaniya. Now, this represents an even higher level than fana. So we have fana fillah. Now we have al-fana an al-fana. Okay, it's an even deeper level. In the first level, there was no awareness of anything else other than yourself being with Him. Here now, in fana an al-fana, the salik or the seeker essentially loses his self-awareness. Okay, in the first sajda, you are still there. You are aware that you are doing sajda and you are aware of His essence and nothing else. You and Him. In the second sajda, where it's fana an al-fana, fana from fana, here, this awareness of yourself goes away as well. So think of it as total attention on Him to the point that you're not even aware of yourself. You cannot even detect any sign of yourself. so much is your absorption in his hudur, his presence. The boundaries of yourself melt away, and then only the experience of his presence remains. That's the second sajda. At this point, there is no further to go. In fact, some have said, the ayah which says, فَكَانَ قَابَ قَوْسَيْنِ أَوْ أَدْنَى, is referring to these two levels. قَابَ قَوْسَيْن, it's very close. That's the first sajda, that's fana. أَوْ أَدْنَى is just, it's unable to even describe exactly where you are. أَوْ أَدْنَى, this is the closest level that can be reached. And that's the fana and al-fana. Okay, so that's an overview of the irfani understanding of the sajda and what it symbolizes. Now, if we continue, what is this essentially summarized as? Is that the key to sajda is to essentially subtract everything. So initially you start by subtracting external objects. What I mean is having enough control on your attention, using the techniques that we learned, having the ability to control and concentrate your attention so that you are so focused that you eliminate any awareness of anything else, any external objects. That's the first part. Next, you go so concentrated, you're not aware of your body either. Next, you go so concentrated that you're not aware of any thoughts or feelings either. You are leaving things behind, leaving behind this false self that's not the true you. And we'll talk more about this false self and true self. I've mentioned it many times. And here today, we'll really spend a bit more time on that to understand what it really means and exactly what we're referring to and how to do it. But just to give you an idea of what is required of us, and also what is the prize from all of this, the destination, the fruit that we will get from all of this, is that when you do this, it's not giving something away. You're giving away nothing. What you're going to receive is almost a new life, a new way of experiencing life that is going to be beyond anything you can imagine, not what you currently value so much. Oh, I don't want to, I want to protect what I am. No, the idea will be you're getting rid of something worthless and replacing it with something of true value. This poem that I put in here is from Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi, and it's a beautiful way of, he has a beautiful way of talking about it. And so I would love to share this with you. He says, کردم از حیرت سجودی پیش او گفت بی ساجد سجودی خوش بیار سجده بی ساجد ندانی چون بود یعنی بی هستی ساجد سجده آر. Okay. So he said, I did a sajda, but he said to me, do a good sajda, a proper sajda. And that's a sajda without the sajid. Okay. Sajda without the sajid. Okay. And then he says, don't you know what that means? Because he's confused. How can there be? How can there be a sajda without a sajid? What he means is, do the sajda without this false I, this false self that you think that you are. We need to get rid of that. Only then will the sajda be a true sajda without the false self. Okay? And then he goes on to say, گردنک را پیش کردم گفتمش ساجدی را سر ببر با ذوالفقار تیغ تا او بیش زد سر بیش شد تا برست از گردنم سر 100,000. So he said, he's asking me to eliminate this false self, this nafs. Eliminate it. I put forward my neck and I told him, cut it with dhul fiqar. This is the willingness to do whatever it takes to reach him. If this false self is what prevents me from being with you, please take a sword and relieve me from this. And so he says, when he did that, the more he cut, the more heads came out until I had 100,000 heads. What he means by this is that don't worry that I don't want to die. I don't want to give up my self. I want to be here to enjoy being with him. That's not what you're being asked to do. Don't worry, you're not going to disappear. The true potential in you is what's going to be released and allowed to grow in its full potential. This, what you think is I, is actually preventing you from realizing your true potential. And that's what he means by this 100,000 heads, which have true knowledge, true insight, true qurbah, true ma'rifah of Allah. It happens by this process of elimination, death of that false self. How beautiful. So we want to do this sajda without the sajid. How to do that? So from there, what we need to do now, I've talked a little bit about this, but I want to go into a little more detail. This is really crucial, probably the most important thing that I can share, and is really the secret of success in the entire spiritual path. It comes down to this. Who am I really? Right? Who am I? When I say I, what do I mean by this? What am I referring to? Normally, we refer to this, this body and this mind, this person that I am, with my history, my personality, my beliefs. I'm this person who has this iman, and I've done all these things. This is my history. This is all of the actions that I've taken, the things that I've learned. This is me. This is I. That's not I. That's all of that. All of that is the false I. That's the one we want to get rid of. The true I is Ruh. We spoke about this before, this diagram that you see, we spoke about it earlier, that we have a three-dimensional structure as a human being, okay? On the surface, we have the body, then we have within that the mind, but beyond the mind, there is the Ruh, okay? They are three different things. And the true you, the real you, is the Ruh. The false you is the body and the mind and the heart. Okay? Now, what do we mean by this? Let's go into more detail. You are the Ruh that is witnessing and aware of the body and the mind. Okay? And what is its nature? What do we mean by this? The Ruh is pure being and pure consciousness. So the part of you that knows, that it's conscious, it's aware, that's the Ruh. It's that consciousness in you. Okay. Everything else is not conscious, is an object of consciousness. You are aware of your body. You are aware of your mind. What is it that is aware? That's the Ruh. And that Ruh is always connected to Allah. That's what's being indicated by وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. Just think how intimate that is. Ruhi, he says, his Ruh. That Ruh is not separate from him even for a moment. The mind can feel separate from him. The body feels separate from him. The Ruh is not separate from him. And this hadith from Imam Sadiq is beautiful. It says, إن روح المؤمن لأشد اتصالا بروح الله من اتصال شعاع الشمس بها. Now he's talking about a mu'min being more intensely connected to Allah's ruh than the rays of light from a sun. But it's actually true for all ruhs, all spirits have that connection. They are connected, they're just not aware of it. A true mu'min, true enlightened one, is aware of this ittisal at all times. Okay, so the ruh is always connected to Allah. And then what we will explore and see for ourselves is that it is also unchanging, just witnessing. It has no boundaries. It's dimensionless. The ruh doesn't have a size. If I asked you, how big is your ruh? The ruh doesn't have any dimensions. It doesn't have any size. Okay? And it doesn't change either. Okay? Will you please go on, everyone on mute, please. The ruh doesn't change. Okay? The ruh doesn't have any gray hair. The mind changes moment by moment, but the ruh doesn't. The consciousness that is aware doesn't change. Your body has changed since you were a child. Your mind has changed since you were a child. But the awareness, just able to know and able to see, able to hear, able to think, that awareness has not changed in you. It's unchanging. And then you'll see also from your direct experience that it is also needless. It doesn't want anything. It doesn't need anything. Because it's directly connected to Allah at all times, it has nothing else it needs. And so it's in a permanent state of peace, happiness, joy, because it is full, it's complete. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't want anything. So our initial attention when we did our meditation was that, remember, we shifted our attention away from the mind and into the body, right? We did the bodily attention. And we did that because normally most of us are very identified with our minds. We live in our heads, very identified with our minds. And that's why we can't stop the thinking process. And that's why we can't concentrate in Salah and establish presence. So what we did as a stepping stone, and I hope everyone remembers how many times I repeated, it's only a stepping stone, an important one, but it's only a stepping stone, was to use the body as a way to create some distance between you and the mind. And we stabilize it in the body because that is a way to quiet the mind. The consciousness gets directed towards the body. And so there's less consciousness available for the mind to generate thoughts. That's how it worked. And so we focused on the body. Well, now with this understanding of our structure and the fact that we are the ruh, we are now going to elevate our meditation to another level, whereby we're not now focused in the mind. Of course, we were not there anyway. We had shifted to the body. Now we're going to shift towards the ruh itself, so that we are grounded in the ruh and aware of both the body and the mind, but from the position of the ruh. And that's what we're going to move on to next, okay? So hopefully that wasn't too much to take in and you followed what I was saying. It's a different perspective, but believe me, it is life-changing if you allow it to blossom within you and to grow and for you to become established by it. And you'll see that this is a higher level than where we were before. Now, one thing is it's not easy. It's a more advanced level. And so if you find it difficult, you have to be patient with it and give it time. It takes time to learn this. And meanwhile, you can focus on the bodily attention. If that's helping you and it's working, then make that the core practice. But what we'll do now is talk about this new technique, which is the more advanced one. And you can work your way towards being able to do this over time. Okay. So with that, we'll move to this practice, which I call it the practice of pure being. Okay. Now, what I'm saying is that this is something we're going to learn as a technique that we do outside of Salah, just like we were doing with the breath meditation and the body scan. Yes, those were things, we're not going to do them in the middle of the Salah, right? Those are techniques, exercises to develop a skill. And we do that outside of Salah, like going to the gym. We go and work out and we train, and then we bring those skills to the main event, which is the Salah itself. So that's exactly what this is. It's just the third technique. I didn't start with this because it's more difficult. It's easier if you learn the other two and then progress on to this one. Okay. So what is the idea, or how to do it? The basic idea is this. We're focusing on your being and your awareness, because before any thoughts or any feelings or any physical sensations, I exist and I am aware. Okay? You see this within yourself. Okay? If the mind is quiet and there's no thoughts, do you still exist? Of course you do. If the mind was quiet and there's no thoughts, no feelings, no awareness of anything, would you still be aware of yourself? Of course you would. In fact, this is a kind of experiment in the mind that Ibn Sina developed himself, actually. He asked this like a theoretical question. Imagine you are in an empty space and you don't feel anything, you don't see anything. Would you still be aware of your own existence? Would you still be aware? And you would. Yes, because the ruh has intrinsically, it exists and it is aware. It doesn't need eyes or ears or a brain to think. It needs nothing to be aware of itself. And you can summarize all of that as I am. So if you look within you, even now, and deep inside, before there's anything else that you're aware of, you can become aware of your own being and the fact that you are conscious, you're aware, you're alive. Not referring to anything else other than that sense of I am here, I exist. Okay, so we focus on that natural feeling. You don't have to create it. You don't have to do anything. It's always there. You always exist. You're always aware. And so it's always there. You just have to tune into it and see now that if you focus on that, it's like a witness in the background, deep inside you. It's like a background that is aware, like a screen, is aware of different thoughts and different objects that arise in the mind, but it in the background is watching this. So this is the exercise. You just sit inside, deep inside, in total silence. You don't do anything. You just shift your attention and see that there are things that come into your mind. A thought, a feeling, a memory. Okay, so there's a memory that came up in my mind. Who is aware of the memory? Okay. Focus on this. There is a witness that is aware of this memory. And it applies to any thought and any object that you see inside, outside. Something inside you is aware of this. That's what we call the witness. Okay. So now in the practice, what we do is we look at any object that arises in the mind and become aware that there is a witness and there is the object. Okay, try to see this, that there's a witness that is observing all of this. Then what we do is forget the object, shift your attention directly to that witness. What is the nature of that witness? That witness is the ruh. And you'll see, if you focus your attention there, the nature of that witness is, I've put these 3 beautiful names of Allah there. They will point you to what is to be experienced as the nature of the ruh itself. Okay. Al-Haq is the one that truly exists. When you look inside, you see that that ruh exists. It's there. And it's not depending on anything external for that. It's there. It exists. I am. I have the name Ash-Shaheed here. That's the witness. This ruh is also a shaheed. And it is the one that says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. It's the shaheed. And then as-salam. What you see is that that witness is unchanging, and in a state of perfect peace, unbroken peace. Because what the mind is doing with thinking and feeling and all these things that are bubbling up, and the monkey mind that's moving around the whole time and sometimes gives you a headache or makes you tired, all of that is the mind. Shift the focus to the witness, and you see that the witness is just watching. It's unchanged by any of that. We need to see the difference between the mind that's moving and the unmoving witness. The unmoving witness, because it's unaffected by anything that appears in front of it, it's unaffected by it. And that's why it's in a state of perfect peace. That's why it is a reflection of Allah in that way. You will also see that unlike the objects, the thoughts and the feelings that arise within you, that witness doesn't have any boundaries. It doesn't have an edge. It is amazingly spacious. You focus on that, and there's just a natural feeling of completeness, of infiniteness that's there. It has no wants. It has no needs. It's in a perfect state of happiness. And all of this you can experience directly within you. Just quieting the mind and focusing on that witness. And just stay there and experience the nature of that witness. That is your ruh. So this is something that you can do anywhere, anytime. And I would add it to those techniques that we learned earlier. And it will really transform the way you experience life, because it will ground you. Once you see that that peace exists within you, you will never feel too disturbed by anything that happens in life. It's just an amazing anchor for you. So that's what I call the practice of pure being, the practice of I am. All right. Now we do that outside of Salah. Now we'll end by talking about the inner practice now within the SAJDA. Okay. So you establish your presence as the witness now. And you're going to do this through the whole Salah. When you're doing your Salah, we remember we're not identified with the mind. Already we used the body to avoid becoming caught up in the mind. Well, now we're taking it a step deeper. You do the Salah as that witness. The witness is there observing the mind and the body from a deeper position. So we do that and we hold that through the whole Salah. Okay? Then we come to the SAJDA. Now, the first sajda, remember we said it is the elimination of awareness of all objects. So you establish your own presence, that witness, not the objects that the witness is aware of, just that witness, which is your presence. And again, opening up to his presence, just like we described earlier, okay? So in the first sajda, what we reach is a point where there is only awareness of your presence and his presence. And when I say your presence, I'm not talking about the body, I'm not talking about the mind, just your being, just that witness and Allah, nothing else. That's what we do in the first sajda. Okay? So that's fana. Fana means it's only you and him. There are no other objects, only you and him. That's fana. Now, when we lift our head from that and we sit, القاعدة بين السجدتين, you pause, but you hold on to this state of awareness. Don't lose that focus. Again, only the witness and Allah. Okay? And now here we say astaghfirullah. Why do we say astaghfirullah? It's not astaghfirullah for things that you've done in the past. That's not what this is about. This astaghfirullah is because even this, we have still not fully eliminated the sajid. Okay, they want us to go beyond this. So it's asking forgiveness for holding on to any kind of awareness of your presence, your witness. If you are in love with him and you want to be in his presence, then it should be so overwhelming that you are not even aware of yourself. That's the fana an al-fana stage, not even aware of yourself. And so we do that by just learning to channel our entire conscious awareness to his essence, his presence, to the point that you're not aware of yourself, only awareness of his presence remains. And so you get lost in him. And you may think, why would we do that? It has an amazing impact on you. You may not be there or aware of yourself, but this will purify all of the misunderstanding and ignorance that is within you, that is preventing you from being connected to him at all times. This is the journey of Salah, and this is the climax that we reach. We have finally arrived at him. Thank you.